Hey, I'm David Mackenzie, here with an avforums.tv exclusive review of a fairly unusual product, Panasonic's TH-65VX100 65-inch plasma display. Unlike most of what we review here at AV Forums, this is a monitor and not a television, meaning that it's designed for professional video use, not for everyday TV watching. So, after heaving this monster out of its flight case, the first thing I noticed put a huge smile on my face. There is no gloss black anywhere on this screen, just a sensible, great looking brushed steel frame. Now, I've complained about gloss black enough already, so I'll just leave it at that and say that I really appreciate a display with a matte finish. It really does make it look all the more like a professional product. Also, unlike a consumer TV, you can customize the connectivity options on this monitor by simply sliding input boards in and out of the back panel. Our review sample came with 2 HDMI input boards with a total of 4 inputs, that's 2 on each, and an analog component video input board. But the possibilities here are limited only to what boards you can find. Professionals, for example, could choose to add an SDI input board to monitor images from a studio VTR. But, as I was using my own home AV receiver to do much of the work here, I just ran a single HDMI cable from it to the display. Now, the display's menus here can be a tiny bit confusing because the options available to you depend on how you have things configured, and there are a few hidden menus as well. For example, if you tell the monitor that you're using an external video processor like I was, then most of the video controls on the screen will be grayed out. You can also replace some of the less useful viewing modes, that's normal and dynamic, with ISF day and ISF night calibration modes by entering a password. We did, however, have access to a white level adjustment called Contrast, a grayscale preset called White Balance, which I set to Warm, and an option called Color Management. Sadly, this is no more than an on-off switch and not a full 3D color management system, just like on the consumer displays. Forgive me for being more than a little disappointed at the absence of a full color management system on a screen costing this much money. Tucked away in the TV's advanced menu are some very comprehensive gamma controls, an automatic gain control option which Panasonic recommended I leave alone, and grayscale controls for the high and low ends. Out of the box, things look fantastic after even just a basic calibration, which really just entailed choosing the cinema viewing mode and making adjustments to the few settings that we were allowed to tweak. The picture for a while reminded me of a giant flat CRT. Okay, a giant flat thin CRT with no scan lines and perfect geometry, but you understand my point. Things look nice and very natural on the whole. So when I saw the RGB levels chart, I was surprised at how far from optimal the levels were. And true, test patterns revealed some oversaturated out of gamut colors, but the real world material was already looking very good for the most part. After looking at the measurement charts, it became clear that while the display was inaccurate, it was almost entirely uniformly inaccurate across the entire range. That partly explains why the picture didn't scream incorrect from the start, and bodes very well for the final calibrated performance. The good news is that after tweaking the grayscale high and low end options in the advanced menu, I was left with the second flattest grayscale tracking chart that I've personally witnessed from a plasma display, which is some feat. The highest delta error we measured was around 1.3, in other words, it was essentially unnoticeable. Of course, without any color management system, there was nothing I could do about the inaccurate color gamut. The final picture quality displayed by the TH-65VX100 was fantastic, and in all honesty, very difficult to fault with the naked eye. The practically uniformly flat grayscale tracking was one of the key components in its quality and believability. There were no blue-tinted whites or red-shaded shadows. When I looked at the Blade Runner Director's Cut HD DVD, the amount of shadow detail here was absolutely fantastic, and the believability of the blacks was excellent, even with some ambient light hitting the panel surface. But, as always, turning out the room lights took this into a whole new dimension. The black level here was a shade of dark, dark, dark grey, probably not as deep as the Pioneer curls, but still incredibly respectable. Oh, and on top of this, this panel displayed very little of the usual plasma quirks, with almost no PWM noise or phosphor trails visible. This has been a tough review because I'm personally used to assessing all-in-one consumer devices, fixing their inaccuracies, and then recommending them or not to a broad audience. Well, a broadcast monitor doesn't have a broad audience to start with. It's also not an all-in-one device either, but one part of an entire system, and how it performs will relate quite closely to the other components in the chain. Its out-of-the-box grayscale inaccuracies are fairly easy to correct, and it can produce spectacular results. With this said, the lack of a color management system is a pretty substantial missed opportunity, especially considering that Pioneer's monitors, which cost less money, include a basic one. If you finally choose to, and can afford to include this panel as part of your system, it's hard to imagine you regretting the decision, provided the rest of your gear is up to scratch. This is one display which is going to put big smiles on the faces of a lucky few. I'm David Mackenzie saying thanks for watching, and this has been an exclusive video review from avforums.tv. If you want to read the full text review of this display or any other product we've reviewed, head on over to www.avforums.com/reviews. Thanks for watching.